Sweet,
How
how's
you
it
doing?
going?
Oh, my video's off too. Cool. Hold on.
I'm just setting up my stream. It might take a minute. And I've been doing this a while and I'm not great at it. So,
Sorry.
so stick with me. Okay, let's see. Here we go. It's live. That's great. Okay.
Two.
So stick with me. All right, I'm gonna mute this. There we go. All right. Can you hear me?
I can.
Awesome. How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. So we're live, but it doesn't kind of officially start until 1 minute from now.
Okay.
I'm gonna welcome everybody, and then I'm gonna all that shit.
Yeah. All that stuff.
You?
I appropriately chose the bar area behind me in the house. So
Beautiful. It looks perfect. You have a really nice home bar. I'm very impressed.
Yeah, that's right, Leah. So
And I'm
great job.
That,
Oh, I'm gonna gather things. So I have limes, juicer, probably a juicer, right?
Yeah, limes, juicer, triple sec or Grand Marnier is fine.
Oh
and
man, all right.
And some ice and yay! Hi everybody on YouTube. Hi everybody, welcome. I have a new setup. It's not that elaborate, but it's going to allow me to for you guys to see the entire bar. So, and I'm going to say something here. Ask questions here or on Twitter about space and anything else. Okay, great. All right. And then I'm going to try to get it up on my, I'm going to try to get it up on my device to everybody. Okay, let's see. No, let's look closer. So that, here we go. So that, there we go. So that I can see your questions a little bit more closely because I can see them. Okay, perfect. This is great. Yay. Okay, good. Anybody give me any feedback that you have about the live stream in the comments on YouTube? Because I completely MacGyvered this setup where my computer is precariously perched on top of 2 bar stools and a drill case. So it's very exciting. It is a lot of booze, Cody in Texas. Are you talking about Bobak's bar or mine? Oh, I'm assuming Bobak's bar. I'll post a picture of my bar. I have a lot of booze, my friends. I mean, I should get a medal. Okay, hi everybody. Hi, welcome to Bridgestone Liquid Courage Happy Hour. It is Cinco de Mayo, where we celebrate the liberation of Mexico from one in a long series of interlopers. And we're super excited to be celebrating with you today. And you can ask any questions that you have for me or for Bobak on the YouTube feed. And also we're streaming on Facebook. I cannot look at my Facebook feed at the same time. So ask me questions on YouTube, or you can tweet us questions. My handle is Aisha Tyler, and Bobak says tweets out loud. And the charity that we are supporting today is Project Angel Food, which delivers food to people who are homebound because of health concerns. We did Meals on Wheels previously, and they have a similar mission, but Meals on Wheels focuses mainly on older people, and Project Angel Food has a broader scope, and they deliver to anybody that's incapacitated due to long-term illness. So it's a great charity. Obviously, there's a lot of food insecurity right now. People aren't working, and people are afraid to go out, especially if it's someone who's got a compromised immune system. So these services, these delivery services are incredibly important. So check out Project Angel Food. They're tagged in all my posts, and any amount helps, from $1 to whatever you can give. Makes a big difference when we scrape all those dollars together. And here's my good friend Bobak. Hi.
Hello.
You know, it's really funny. So I posted about you coming on the show yesterday, and I realized I've actually never said your last name out loud.
Sure.
Ever, because as I texted you, you're like a one name person to me, like Cher or Madonna. So how do you say your last name?
It's Ferdosi.
Okay, I took it wrong, but I was close. I think I gave 2 pronunciations, hoping that one of them.
I'm one of those kids who in school, whenever like you would see someone like hesitate to start saying your name, you're like, oh, that's probably me.
Right, exactly. It's just they look and they kind of pause, like, okay,
yeah,
here.
I'm present.
I also think it's funny, like the longer you work in any kind of a public space, you would think that people would get your name right, like over time. But like, I still get Alicia Taylor all the time.
Right.
Right, and they still say Taylor, and I've just kind of given up, but it's fine. Whatever shape you can get out of your mouth is cool with me. Do you have all of your, first of all, look at your beautiful home bar.
Yeah, also our cat is in the corner here. He's just Hey, come on over here. Can I come here? No, he's very shy.
That was enough of that. Yeah, that was very
He's okay. Oh, he's right. He's gonna say hi. Who doesn't love cats? I mean, look at this guy.
Doesn't love cats.
Look at this guy.
Oh, that's a mesmerizing cat. I mean, like
I know.
I'm right now. He's staring at my soul.
Cute, his little blinky eyes. Gotta love him.
What's his name?
This is one's Indy. We have Indy and Lady. Lady's somewhere else around the house. She's a little more shy. But.
And you have a beautiful home bar. Have you been making cocktails at home, like during?
I have been mostly just drinking whiskey, like just trying different whiskeys and seeing what I find.
This is a time for personal exploration. I really feel like this is a time to look within. Yeah, I've been drinking the same thing when I'm just drinking for myself. I've just been making like variations on the Negroni like every day. And then thinking like, I know I need to branch out more. These have been good because I make sure I make something different every happy hour. But when it's just me, it's just like, what kind of a version of a Negroni can I make?
I will say, like, also with today being 90 something degrees, this sounds great, but also all tropical drinks sound kind of amazing right now.
Right, anything juicy.
Yeah.
That's a really good idea, totally. Well, everybody tell your friends that we are online right now. We're gonna make this. I have, well, I mean, we have a taco, but I don't know. I was gonna eat a taco, but it's gone. It's okay because I'm just gonna get taco ingredients. I'm gonna leave that for after. We're gonna make a margarita, and I wanted to like give you guys, this has been also, I don't know if you found this, but like, I don't know that I'm as productive as I thought that I would be going into.
No, I totally agree.
Do you know what I mean? I just felt like I was gonna get it all done and like knit a sweater and I don't know, like rearrange my teeth. I'm not as productive as I thought I was gonna be.
Yeah, I would definitely say it's taking a hit.
Yeah, right. And I think, I mean, you know, I know some people are going through all kinds of different experiences with quarantine. Like some people are feeling quite blue, and that's really normal. It's normal to feel blue. It's normal to feel disoriented and tired, and people should be giving themselves a break, especially if they're feeling rather disconnected. It's a part of why I'm doing these happy hours is for people to find some way to feel connected to other people, even if it's just temporarily. But you know, you also just think like, I don't need to get up at 6 in the morning. I can lay in bed for as long as I like.
Hard same. Yeah, at least I had like the gym or some routine to get me up in the morning in the past. Yeah. Now it's just like, first meeting is at 9 a.m., waking up at the crack at 8:30, so I can be ready for that meeting.
I was on a Zoom and I was like, guys, you pack more into the time that you are awake because like you don't have the hour to get ready and then the hour to drive to a meeting. You're just like up at 8:57 on the Zoom at 9.
Right.
May or may not put on pants.
No one knows.
No. I haven't worn pants in months. Well, we're gonna make this margarita. That was to lead up to this, the fact that I was going to give everybody like some kind of history of the margarita, but I didn't look it up.
Okay.
So we're right now, so we can discuss the history of the margarita because I think it's important. The one thing I will say is for people that have been doing all these happy hours with me, you have probably seen a pattern in drink styles, right? There's like a few different, and I'm not, I mean, I was a bartender a long time ago. I'm not a pro. If I had a pro, like a hardcore pro on here, like maybe like Michael McElroy and Sam Ross from Attaboy, New York, they have an app and they're like, literally, there are only like 6 or 7 kinds of cocktails and everything is a variation on that cocktail. So you will notice that like sours and margaritas and there's like one old family drinks and they're all essentially variations on a sour, right? There's like tequila and lime juice or whiskey and lemon juice and a sweetener and a bitters, and that's pretty much like a variation. And then they just kind of, you know, the pisco and the, I don't know, those are all the drinks I have.
Is this kind of like the salt, fat, acid, heat of bartending?
That is it. That is it. Really poorly explained.
No, I mean, I appreciate it, right? Like there's a, you know, I mean, it's kind of very similar. The acidic, the sweets, that like you combine various versions of those.
I knew there was another one. I made a daiquiri the other day, and I made a honeymoon daiquiri, and that, you know, there are all these that's essentially just rum and lime juice. But here we go. The margarita is a popular Mexican and American drink, and it is a daisy. It is the word margarita is the Spanish word for daisy, and daisy is a very old drink, and the daisy made with brandy and citrus, and that became popular during Prohibition, as people drifted over the border to Mexico to get liquored up, which we have not stopped doing despite the fact that Prohibition ended a long time ago. So, and it originates from pre and concurrent Prohibition times, so around the 20s and 30s. So it's a very old drink. And we're gonna make it right now, and then we're gonna talk. So here we go. And I do have a recipe here that I pulled up because I don't have any of these things memorized, although they are all pretty straightforward. So you should have your lime juice and you should have some tequila of your choice. The very nice people at Bruxo have seen me doing these happy hours and sent me this beautiful bottle of mezcal. And, and it's really nice to look at, but I don't know how to get it open yet. So I wanted to show it to you guys. It's got this like wax seal on it, and so and I really want to make it with this, but I should have planned better. I'm gonna scrabble it. What did you go get your booze? Do you have your booze?
I got mezcal and I've got limes in front of me and a juicer. Okay, and I need some sort of triple. I don't even know if we have all these things. This is what's great about this.
It doesn't. It's just any orange liqueur. So like, I think I can see Grand Marnier back there. That
all right.
You don't have Cointreau.
Where do you see Grand Marnier? Oh, you do. Look at that. I also have a yuzu extract.
Ooh, well you're.
I mean, we could go very weirdly cultural on this. I've got the Grand Marnier as well. Can always add to taste.
Yeah, I think it's gonna go great. Oh, I did it. I'm very excited. So I got this Bruxo open. I'm excited about that because I love mezcal. I don't know if people watching have had this experience, but I used to be very sensitive. Not like a wimp, but I used to be very sensitive to spice and heat. And like the more you eat something spicy, the more you love spicy food until like you just like literally like douse everything in like hot sauce and taco sauce. I used to not like mezcal, and now I only want to drink mezcal in all of my tequila drinks. I don't know if you've had that experience. When I go somebody,
this is like my foray into mezcal. I'm excited so far. It's been very good, like very happy.
It just makes them more exciting. It's like, I don't drink Bloody Marys with vodka. I have them make them with whiskey because whiskey just has more character. So it has like a bigger base note when so same thing with a mezcal. You're gonna get like this yummy smokiness in your margarita. So anyway, okay, so I've scrabbled this bottle open like an animal. And let me make sure I have the proportions right. See, people think they're coming to me for expert advice. They're just coming to me to drink. That's all. They might can't.
While you're doing that, I'm going to grab a knife so I can cut these limes.
As you guys will see, if you've done the whiskey sour with me or if you did the daiquiri with me, the proportions are all very similar. The citrus liqueur is a really nice one here. It makes like a lovely, lovely style. So here we go. How do they have proportions here on this recipe that I pulled up? Well, everybody, hopefully you're getting your ingredients together right now while I pull up the recipe that I had on my phone earlier and then for some reason lost because I also didn't eat very much today. And what I'm really trying to not do is be super looped on these happy hours. So I stopped down to have some jalapeno potato chips in honor of Cinco de Mayo. What a hack. Okay, they're delicious, by the way, if you've never had these. I don't work for this company.
They're very good.
Oh my God, they changed my life. Okay, so it's 2 parts tequila, 1 part triple sec, and then like 1.5 to 2 parts lime juice, depending on whether you want it juicy or not. A lot of people use agave or a sweetener like simple syrup. It's up to you. Agave doesn't just make things sweet, it kind of adds this nice like vibe. So I like a little bit of agave, but some people want no agave because they're just, I don't know, prone to suffering. So here we go. 2 parts tequila. You've got a measurement, any kind of, and you're doing your juicing, right?
Yeah, I'm juicing right now.
Yeah, so like, like 2 ounces of lime juice, which will require you juicing 70 limes.
Great. Well, we're gonna be out after 2, so let's see how we do.
So many limes for this today, and I got tired and I put 2 lemons in it. I was tired. All right, so 2 ounces of tequila. You will also find that 2 ounces is the standard pour for any alcohol-based drink.
Now that's the larger size of the jigger, right? Like if I'm doing 2 ounces.
1 ounce jigger, obviously, just two pours.
Okay.
My special ice cube is hanging on. Oh, I know why it's hanging up there because I need to save it. Okay, so 2 ounces of tequila, and then I'm gonna do approximately. I'm gonna do 2 ounces of citrus here just to make it easier on myself because I'm measuring out 1.75 ounces of citrus. Seems like too much work for a Tuesday. So there's 2 ounces of citrus, 2 ounces of tequila, 1 ounce of any orange liqueur. I have Cointreau here, which I imagine they were not using in Mexico in the 1930s. I don't know. I actually don't know what a legacy triple sec would be other than the triple sec of the day. but no matter. And when you go to a bar, guys, I know you've had this, you've had good margaritas and you've had bad margaritas. If you want a good margarita, you should ask for a top shelf margarita, because then they'll actually make your margarita from scratch. But if you don't ask for a top shelf margarita, you'll get margarita mix, which in some bars is good, but in most bars tastes like an elbow and an ass had sex. It's so yucky.
I used to love the Dresden because they made that sour mix for their whiskey sours from scratch, and it was so good.
I love whiskey sour so much. I made my first egg white based whiskey sour on this show.
Oh,
It's like watching your first cake rise. You're like, I did it. It was really exciting. You know what? Before I add my agave, I'm going to stir this puppy and taste it and see how we're doing with my fancy stir. But guys, like I said, you don't have to be fancy. This fanciness is dumb. You can just like whatever you have in your house, a jelly jar. If you use one of these guys, all I recommend is that you don't shake really hard unless it's something that has to be agitated, because it breaks up all the ice and you get ice chips in your drink, and nobody likes that. Okay, I am gonna add a little bit of agave. Oh, it's delicious. Okay, that was obviously not very scientific. I just squirted it in there. And I could make the dirtiest joke right now, but I'm not gonna do that because I'm a classy lady. I'm a classy lady. All right, so stir, and I taste this again. It's amazing. You can add more or less sweetener based on your preference. Agave's a good one because it's like got a little bit more character than straight simple syrup, but it's not going to be as intense as like a honey or a maple syrup. And I'm going to stir a little bit more because I don't think it's fully dissolved. How are you doing on your drink?
so far so good. Okay, so I got 2 ounces of mezcal, 2 ounces of lime juice. And what do you think? You think we should do the Grand Marnier or the yuzu extract for?
I could do the Grand Marnier because the Grand Marnier isn't just alcohol based; it's got some sweetness to it.
Perfect.
And the extract's just gonna be citrus. I mean, fancy it up by all means, but I would add yuzu, not with trace. Ooh, you know what's really good in cocktails? Everybody who's watching, it's very hard to get now because apparently, like one guy on the entire planet used to make orange blossom water. He was in like.
Oh.
There was this one guy in the Middle East who made like 90% of the world's orange blossom water. And he was in like Jordan or something, and then he stopped, and now it's almost impossible to get. But if you can ever find a bottle of orange blossom water, and you put it in literally put it in anything, put it on an egg salad sandwich, it makes everything so great. And I was making gin blossoms for a while, and I was adding orange blossom water, and then I was just floating away on a cloud of happiness. That was a long time ago. Okay, so we stirred this up. I let the agave dissolve. And I am going to strain.
And you said agave for sweetness?
Agave for sweetness is my suggestion.
Right. Hold on, I'll be right back. I gotta go. This is me making it real time.
That's okay. Yeah, guys, this is real science. We're doing real science. We're the real scientists, everybody. A real scientist, a space rocket scientist. So, in a bar, they have that weird thing. It's like I know because I used to do this when I was a bartender. It's like a sponge and it's wet, and then they like dip their glasses in it to make it wet. So they can
yeah.
Those are really gross. Now. Bartenders who are watching, I'm not trying to beat you up. I know that you run a tight ship, but those tend to accumulate bacteria and other weird stuff. So instead, I'm gonna use my hand because my hands are clean. But you can just wet the rim like this, or if you had a piece of cut fruit, you could run the cut fruit around the rim of your glass. And then I'm gonna salt this glass. I have the cutest bottle of tagine that I've ever seen in my entire life. Oh, it's so cute. If people don't know, tagine is like this amazing, like spicy Mexican salt. And it's really delicious. And I'm going to put it on the rim of this glass and see if I even get it wet. Oh, it's so cute. Are you a salt on your rim person or a no salt on your rim person?
I'm a salt on my rim person. Now I feel like I have to go do it. Like I was like, that's a little extra, but like I'm seeing it. And I'm like, it looks great.
It's yummy. I kind of want to salt more of it actually. I'm not like massive amounts of salt. Like sometimes you go to a place and they just like to try to like preserve you in amber, but a little bit of salt on the rim of your glass is nice. This would be more elegant if I had the, if I wasn't at home in my sweatpants. But you guys get the vibe. And here we go. So I've got the salted rim. I have this fancy ice cube that I made here in my little fancy ice cube tray. I put it in there. And now we're gonna strain this cookie out. Here it is. We're gonna strain it out. And here we go. I'm very excited about this. Very excited. It looks delicious. It's gonna be delicious. That ice cube would be a little bit more impressive, except that it was melting for a while in my glass. All right, there we go. So here is my little margarita that I made, which I'm very excited about. If you've never had mezcal, I don't suggest you taste it like by itself for the first time, but it's very good in other things. It's just very complimentary to any tequila drink, and it makes everything more exciting. Did you salt your rim?
I'm doing it now. I'm pouring out some tagine on a plate here.
And yes, I know that like actually is the most complex part of this recipe, is like salting the rim without like the salting tool that they have in bars. But yeah, we don't.
I don't feel like I wet my rim enough, so that's probably part of the problem.
Jokes about moisture, but I'm not going to do it because I'm an adult.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Just a grown woman. I'm a grown adult person. Thank you, everybody out there on the internet. Stop
I got a little bit on there. I feel like I could have done more.
Yeah, like
All right.
the vibe.
You got a hint. You can kind of
Down my taco. I'm gonna
see it. All right.
Okay. Is it? Very nice. Very nice. I'm so excited. So everybody, while Rebecca's pouring this drink, the charity is Project Angel Food. They deliver meals to people who are homebound because of long-term illness or debilitation. Obviously, there's a lot of food insecurity right now, so it's a really important thing that they are doing. They are a 4-star charity, Navigator rated charity, meaning that they are highly efficient, and most or all of what you donate goes to the people that they serve. So they're a really great organization, and you should check them out. And we're going to say cheers right now.
Cheers.
Great.
Got a little Apollo glass that I'm cheersing with.
I love it. Yay. And that will bring us to our ongoing conversation that we're going to have with you.
That was great. Thanks.
I've
never made one.
Isn't it so
fun? Yeah, that was fantastic.
Did you do mezcal for this one?
I did. I like that smoky flavor. Very good.
Oh, I'm stoked. Okay, that makes me really happy. Oh, okay. I'm just gonna have them.
Yeah.
So delicious. I feel like you can get tagine everywhere. I grew up in California, and obviously we have like a huge Mexican American community, and so we have like the good luck of having access to all this awesome stuff. But I feel like now you can get good Mexican stuff all across.
And it's got a little bit of citrus to it too, which is nice. Like I think it adds a little bit.
It's not just
kind of a tartness. Yeah.
Oh, it's so good. Okay, now let's talk about. I have so many questions to ask you.
Oh, great. So I mean, I think we should talk about how this came up, because
yes, let's.
I was like, you need to come visit me at work. And
Buck works at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. I don't know if you've heard.
So we have a NASA center here in LA. Most people don't realize that there's a NASA place in LA at all. And we're part of Caltech and part of NASA, which is this cool hybrid. I think a couple months ago, I was like, listen, they're finishing the rover. Come by, see it before we ship it off to Mars. And you were like, I'm super busy. How about this date? And I was like, great. And then for whatever reason, I think I was like, I'm sorry, I can't make that date or whatever it was. And then all of a sudden, of course, we're like, remember when we were going to hang out before COVID-19? So you still haven't come by. I mean, you will eventually.
As soon as we can be people again, I'm coming. I mean, I love, just by way of very short explanation, this word gets bandied about a lot, so I apologize if it sounds a little hacky, but I was such a nerdy kid. I love space so much. All I did was read and fantasize about going to space. All I read was like Mars Chronicles and like just every single book about space or space living or colonization. And then I obviously didn't go into science, but I just love it. And that 12-year-old me is still so fascinated by it. And it's just so.
I just never grew up. I think that's the thing. Like I'm still 12 and I'm like, this is great. They pay me to do this now.
Yeah. And it's just, did you always want to be an astronaut person?
So I actually thought, I actually think I ruled out astronaut, being like, that's impossible. I'll never be an astronaut.
That's like big military. It's either you have to be a big science or big military, but don't you have to decide at 5, I'm going to be an astronaut, and then just start training at 5 years old?
I mean, it seems like a lot of the astronauts are like the kinds who are like, I wanted to be this since I was a kid, or have sort of had a game plan. But I think a lot of them are also just, they're really hardworking folks who appreciate the value, or I think are really good teamwork. And they work well. You have to kind of work in teams, obviously, because it's not just the team of you in space, but it's also the thousands of people who have to work together to make anything big like this happen. For me, I loved space, and I think I loved science fiction. And what happened was I somehow made the mistake of thinking they were the same thing. which is kind of true, but like, I watched so much Star Trek as a kid, and I loved the idea so much of this future where like humankind was all together. And particularly, I'm Iranian American, and that's a, you know, like that's a particularly divisive thing, I think, growing up as a kid, where you're like, these two countries always seem to be at odds with each other, and like all I want to do is visit my grandparents or, you know, see my cousins.
And you can't.
And I can't.
Did your parents leave after the revolution? Like,
my dad left right before the revolution. He came here for college, and then basically, my mom's from the United States, and so they met in college, and then I'm the byproduct of that. But no, so I mean, I think, but I still have, you know, so much of my dad's side of the family. He was one of 6 kids, so of course, plenty of cousins, aunts, uncles, that I still haven't had the chance to sadly meet. That we'd at least get. I mean, right? The miracle of internet is like at least can see them now and like chat with them and stuff like that. I was so bummed. It was a little earlier this year, but of course, Iran had like a ban on the internet, and I couldn't even talk to my grandma for her birthday, which is a real bummer. But luckily, I've been able to talk to her since then. She's lonely because nobody will visit her, because everybody's like, we don't want to get you infected. So they like will all go to our house, drop off groceries, and then like knock on the door and run away.
It's terrible. I've been doing it with my mom, and I'm like, I'm not coming in. She's like, you can come in. I'm like, no, I can't. I'm like,
No.
come in. I know this feels like I'm using this as an excuse not to see you, but like if I get my mother sick, I'm going to die.
Oh my God, right? Like, yeah, that's, I can't.
You, me, I will perish. So and she's like, I just want to hug you. I'm like, you.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking. It really is. Yeah, just, I mean, not to make it more downer, but I have a good, you know, a friend and a colleague whose dad is in hospice, and he's only recently been able to go visit him finally. And it's such like, I was thinking about all these stories of people, you know, who are going through this experience, and you know, I'm sure it's rough on so many people, of course, and all of us are feeling the stress of it. But like, I can't imagine that situation, right, where your parent, you know, somebody that you love is sick already or in the hospital. And like, I'm fortunate enough that like everybody in our family seems to be very healthy still and like doing well in all this. But that, yeah, just my heart really went out for my coworker. Sorry. Anyway, back to the thing though.
Some people are like, they're going through this thing together, either because it's someone that they know that's going through it, or because it's someone in their family that's
right.
going through it. And I think, you know, it's like this combination of like wanting to be upbeat and also just wanting to acknowledge that like it's a really unusual time. And I think what makes it the most unusual is that under any other circumstances, we could still interact with the people that we love. If someone was dying or sick,
right,
we could comfort them. But it's just, it's not like something like this has never happened, but we've never experienced it, not in our modern era. And by our modern era, I mean like the last 2 generations,
right,
3 generations, where there's an illness going around where you couldn't then go hug the person or comfort the person, you know, where they're telling people like they can't go in and see their spouse have a baby. Like that's just seems like insane to me. And it's for the right reasons, and I get it, but it doesn't mean we can't talk about the fact that it's very
no, I agree. And I mean, we have to acknowledge it. Like life is super tough as it is. Adding this to it, and then just all those experiences that we normally take for granted that are now, you know, kind of taken off the table for so many folks. I mean, I was like, you know, I live real close to Caltech, and thinking about all the students who like can't imagine my senior year like, hey, just go home. No senior year parties, no saying, you know, hanging out with your friends and kind of like getting the good, you know, long, you know, month-long goodbyes or whatever. It's just, yeah.
The only thing I think I feel comforted by, and I know it feels very glib, is like, just imagine if this had even happened 5 years ago. Like, our technology has advanced so, you know, obviously like advances like exponentially, right? So like, you know, the advances we made in the last 6 years are going to be made in the next 6 months. We keep kind of like making them faster, but it just seems like at least there are these tools that we have now that we never had before. And I remember the first time my mom FaceTimed me, she literally, it was like I had teleported her onto a station. She was just like, and then you're in there. And and you know, thank God at least there are these tools, right, to kind of like shorten the distance a little bit. But
no, it helps a lot.
Zooming and house partying and all the things that the kids do.
Yeah, no, it's definitely helpful. And it's really nice to just still see friends and have a drink and chat and just like feel like, oh, this is kind of like, it reminds you, it makes you feel a little more normal, right? Like it just kind of makes you feel like, oh, that's right, these are the people I can't touch them right now, but I can at least like
remind you who you are, right? Like you see,
right.
Oh yeah, this is who I am. This is my tribe.
Yeah. So it is a wonderful thing.
So the fact of the matter, first of all, I still have 1,000 questions for you, and here's one. I want to hear more about how you got into being in space and working in space. But when something good happens, like a rover unfurls its little wings or something lands, do you guys jump up and down like they do in the movies?
Yeah, I mean,
Do all the guys?
My favorite thing is there was a GIF of Keith Como, who was the flight director during the night of the landing, and his reaction is like the epitome of just joy physically expressed. Like he is just jumping up and down, and like, you know, like his body is moving like uncontrollably, and it's awesome. Like he's so happy, and like it's such a great, like I've seen it, and people don't always recognize where it's from, but people will use that as a reaction GIF for things like when they're so like overjoyed about something. And I'm like, this is awesome. Like our moment of pure joy is now like a reaction for people when they want to express joy about something.
What is the movie that, I don't know, I'm touching movies now, because I feel like because I didn't become a scientist, like I still love sci-fi the way that I did when I was a kid.
Yeah.
My way into this world. What movie gets like space? What recent movie has gotten space exploration right? Like, I
think there's a couple of good examples. I think obviously Apollo 13 did an amazing job of like creating that environment and getting that right. But it's, you know, at that level they have the benefit of history. The Martian got a ton right about what it's going to be like for space explorers. I think they understood the general architecture of like how you're going to fly, you know, multiple missions and have to pre-land things, and you know, the resources that you need, and how it's not going to be. They didn't really glamorize it in any way. And I love that at some level they also represented the process as like a real, here's what you do. You've got a problem, you break it down to something that you understand, and then you slowly work through the smaller problems until you solve the major one. And I think that's a great example of something that kind of also captures the emotional aspect of the process, as well as the okay, here's what space might look like in 10 or 15, you know, or 20 years, or whatever that time frame is. Right. So I think they did a really awesome job on that one.
Yeah, it was good. It was also, I felt like it really like brought in all the disciplines, like through the whole movie. I remember.
Yes.
Like it showed that it wasn't just like one person or even a small team, that there were like so many people working on these problems together, solving these problems together. I'm gonna pull my computer a little closer to me, because I just got a note that the sound wasn't great. And you know, guys, I don't have a production team, obviously. Let's see if that makes a difference. Okay, somebody let me know if it sounds a little bit better.
You sound loud. You sound clear to me.
Okay, good. So when you were growing up, like, was your undergraduate degree like science or space or whatever?
I started out as a physics major, and I thought like I'm going to be, you know, a physicist and, you know, explore the cosmos through the deeper pursuit of science. And I realized for me, I think I didn't have the patience at the end of the day. Like I liked it. I still love it. I'm very inquisitive about how the universe works, but I realized I needed more milestones to kind of feel like I was making progress. Like I needed more like little steps.
Something to show. Like
that's right. And so I think engineering was like a really happy thing, because I get to help those people answer those questions. I get to participate in that process, but I also have like, hey, here's a initial design, or here's how this little piece of the puzzle is going to work. And I kind of get those like little parts of it that make me feel like, oh, I'm really like, today is a concrete, I did something kind of moment. It turns out, of course, I'm also getting older, I think helps with the patience. These projects are now, you know, 10 years long or whatever, right? Where you work on it.
Like the definition of a moonshot, right? Like we're going to work on this. It's going to take us 10 years at a time.
Right. I mean, I worked on the rover for 9 years before we landed. And it was a wonderful experience, and no complaints. I think if you had asked me at like 18, could you do that? I'd be like, no way. There's no way I'm going to work on something for 9 years. That's like outrageous.
I just can't. I'd be sick of it.
And it turned out, like, again, there was enough along the way that I kept kind of feeling rejuvenated and feeling like I was making awesome progress. And I think for a lot of folks, that's what it is. It's still like you want to know how the world works, but then there's a way of just kind of applying that knowledge and feeling like, okay, I did something today that made me feel like, you know, I'm one step closer, which when I was doing, and I'm sure that's not, I'm sure plenty of physicists and scientists feel that way on their normal job, but when I was a student, I didn't quite feel that way. The experiment that I worked on, in particular in undergrad, was one where it worked when I first started as a freshman, and I worked on it the whole time, even though I changed majors to aerospace engineering. It worked. We took it apart in order to improve the accuracy of it, and by the time I graduated, it still wasn't working again. And so, like, that was the epitome. I'm like, I can't do this. It wasn't good enough, right? Like, we had built something that worked but wasn't good enough. And I was like, all right now, but I learned a lot, right? I mean, knowing kind of like at some point, experience is about learning also what you don't like and what works better for you, right? And it was
And also like
awesome
kind of
that way.
failure, right? People who fear failing, right? Well, can't ever make leaps forward because like a part of that process is like, we tried it, it didn't work. We tried it, it didn't work. We tried it, it didn't work. And if you don't have like an appetite or a tolerance for things not going your way, you'll wash out because you're just like, oh, this is never going to work. But like 9 years working on the rover, with the expectation that it was going to go to Mars and rove. But I mean, and then even after it landed, there were like continued to be like unexpected
Sure.
seen problems, right? And I can't even imagine like working all that time on something, and now it's like, this is not the scientific measurement, a jillion miles away, and maybe not knowing confidently whether you can fix the problem, and then there's no getting it back, and like,
right.
You have to be so emotionally disciplined. You know, I'm just pissed off if like I forget my hat in the car and I have to walk like 30 feet back to get it.
Yeah, I mean, the good news is we've got software and we can change software. But obviously, you can't fix hardware once it's gone. There's no mechanics or anybody around. And so that's, there's the reason why people still work on these missions even after they land. And it's, engineers, not just the scientists. And it's because you keep learning new things, how to operate, something breaks. Our team has invented, clever ways of working around each of the, the way you do with your own body, right? Like if something hurts, you're like, okay, what if I, use this motion instead or whatever? Now your body luckily repairs itself. A rover can't, and so like the drill stopped working the way we wanted to use it, and then the team figured out a way to drill the way it works.
And then like the vibrations would shake the drill back up out of the ground. Isn't that what happened?
That's the mole. So that's the InSight mission, and they are trying to do this very clever. It's such a cool idea, which is a self-hammering kind of probe that will slowly hammer its way down into the surface. And right, like in order to hammer yourself down, you sort of need enough friction, right? So that like if you're like hammering a nail, that the nail doesn't slowly work itself out of the wood, right? Like there's friction on the wood on the side. That's right. And it turns out the motion of trying to lift it up was also popping it out. And so they've been now cleverly like kind of shoving it down with the hand and the arm to hold it in place so that while it hammers down, the arm is sort of pushing from the top so it can't move back out while it's doing its next motion. And it's been a kind of a more tedious process, but they're slowly getting through there. And they're hoping that as they get deeper, that the friction with the terrain on Mars will kind of keep it more and more in place, and it'll start actually burrowing down. Obviously, the arm can't dig as far as the mole is supposed to go.
Oh my God, my email's open. Everybody, feel free to judge me for an additional 30 seconds. Okay. I will say that like you can't be the kind of person, you can't like join like JPL or NASA and be the kind of person who like flips a table if your order is wrong.
There are people who get upset, and it's interesting. I think we're all working on it, but like there are people who do obviously get really passionate about you should not be doing something this way. Like this is an unacceptable risk, or I don't understand how you let yourselves get painted in this corner. And they will, like they'll yell in a meeting. But for the most part, people are pretty rational and calm. Again, sometimes you're just like, I'm so frustrated. Like, how do people not understand my point? And I think some people will get animated by it, but it's never, I've never seen it boil over to the point where it's personal or anything like that, right? Like everybody's always, at the end of the day, like, that blows over and then we're all friends again.
Yeah. Are you, when you go into work, are you the coolest person
No. There's so many, like, there's so many cool people. Not only are there also like just cool people of all generations, I think the people that I've worked with, who are maybe the generation before me who worked on the first round of Mars missions in the 90s, like the Sojourner Pathfinder mission. And they're like, they're into interesting things. They play jazz music. They are amazing photographers. So like not just their work and that like the amazing legacy that they've left us and what they're still doing today, but also like they're just cool people. And then the same thing, like I look at the incoming classes of folks, and I think one of the really just awesome things is the more and more I see the incoming folks, the more I think there's they look like they would fit in anywhere, or they all look like they could be in like bands
Yeah.
as their side gig. And I kind of love that. Like that's what, like you would not know that half of these people are some of the smartest people in the world working on extremely, challenging problems just by their appearance. I think like was lucky in that I just the right moment where people weren't aware of how much I think cooler folks were in this industry in general, and just happened to be sort of the first public acknowledgement of that change, as opposed to actually being by any means cooler than anybody else at work.
Right. I mean, I think that like one of the exciting things that's happening is like the nexus between kind of like everyday life and science is like it's or not the nexus, the separation, I guess. It's much tighter, or we're more aware of it. Because like when I was a kid, technology just wasn't that big a part of our lives. You know what I mean? Like I remember my very first like handheld video game was a little tiny like Donkey Kong, like
Yeah,
LCD handheld. You know what I mean? It was like the most basic technology.
I had those like Tiger Electronic games. You remember like the ones
Yes.
where it was like thing would like a football guy would like run across the field like this. And you're like, yeah.
It's like, was it like 2 bit, like 4 bit, like so poor. And I remember like my first friend that had a video game, like a console game, they had Pong, like he was so dazzled by it, but it was like so remote. And my phone has more computing power than 30 of the computers that I used as a freshman in college. Like what I'm able to do just casually every day on my phone, and like essentially with like no trouble, like it rarely malfunctions. We get updates all the time, like from a magical place in the sky, without sounding like a douchebag. I drive an electric car, and like my car will get an update, and then my car can do things it couldn't do. Do you know what I mean? So I feel like what's interesting is we understand and are connected to science now in a way that we never have been, much more than we ever have been in the past. And yet, of course, and I'm not going to turn this into a political discussion, but like there are just people who like don't like still refuse to like acknowledge science and like how important science is, how it's improved our lives, and how it will continue to improve our lives. And that has to be frustrating for a scientist.
It can, I think, but like kind of seeing the the positive side a little bit of, and tying it back into the last conversation, I think one of the great things is seeing genuinely the change also of the scientists and engineers and the folks that I work with who look more and more like everybody else.
Right.
Also means that we are more like everybody else in some level, and that I think our ability to communicate and disseminate that knowledge and everything else can happen hopefully more naturally, right? Where it doesn't feel like a weird species of human telling you how science works, and instead like it looks like
speaking from like, oh well, that doesn't relate to me, that doesn't have anything to do with my
right
life. Like, shut up, weirdo.
And I think like these are all people who love the same video games or play sports or do music or all the same things that everybody else does, and therefore hopefully are just comfortable or more natural in terms of relating that to, I don't know, let's say you love a specific video and being able to tie in climate change to the video game that you're playing or whatever that is, right? Those references matter in terms of our ability to communicate. And so like I think the more that you see the combining of everyday like interest from folks and scientists and engineers who look like everyday folks, the better it is for being like secret, like we're all secret agents now, and we can be like, haha, science. And then it'll be like, oh, that's right, that makes total sense. I totally see that in this thing.
I love science. Like I love science now the way I loved it as a kid, because everything that we dreamed of as kids is like happening now. Do you know what I mean? Like the magical thing of having a little box that could like tell you where you're going instantaneously, or send your face, and like when you would watch Star Trek and they would be talking about the communicator, and like we have those communicators right now. You know what I mean? It's so,
but now we don't want to use them. We're like, well, we're going to send you the thing.
I have too much magic. I have too much magic. I want to answer some questions. Answer some questions on the internet and also on YouTube and.
All right, while you're doing that, while you're looking up questions, I have a question for you.
Okay, I'm listening.
Talking about science fiction movies, what was one of your favorite science fiction movies as a kid? Like what, you're talking about like what you want, like what you watched and everything. Was there a specific movie that you were like, oh man, I always wish I could have been in?
As a kid, I mean, look, I am, I'm a Gen Xer, so like the movies that completely formed me were the Star Wars movies, but honestly, I saw The Terminator in the theater when I was a kid, and then I watched it like 30 more times. And I have seen every movie in that franchise.
And you're like, I want to build Skynet. You're like, my motivation as a kid.
Exactly. I don't know. Like, it was just like, it's only been sci-fi movies that have radicalized me. And like Star Wars is like, I don't know, like the big warm, like hug of
Sure.
right? But like the movies that made you feel insane were The Terminator. And then, this is not my childhood, but when I saw The Matrix, I lost my entire shit. Like, I remember in the movie, I was sitting next to a guy who English was not his first language, and he had like very little English. He was Japanese, and we were sitting next to each other, and we were just going, "Oh shit!" Like, it was just the most amazing. Like, we just agreed. Yeah. Like, the only words we had in common, but we agreed. Oh shit! And I remember I drove out of that theater. I was like, I am going to see this movie tomorrow again. And like, what's great about it is that was a movie about science that also used science to tell the story better. Like, it was, I don't know. Oh, I loved it so much. Like that. So like, I don't know if that's like a comprehensive accounting, but I do remember like seeing The Matrix and not just thinking this is a great movie, seeing The Matrix and being like, everything is going to be different now for everybody everywhere because of this film. I don't know that way when you saw that. Like, I'd never seen anything like that before in my life.
I mean, I have different, I think movies for me are definitely escapism. But I also, there's movies that I think really, I still will just, I'm like, I can't not watch that movie when it comes on. And 1986 Space Camp, which is one of the cheesiest movies of all time. But that movie brings me so much joy. For those of you that don't know, it is a movie about some kids who are going to space camp and then somehow get like shot into space. And it's got everything 80s in it, right? Like 80s looks. There's a robot that talks in the most, like, it's like that, you know, those robots that they like would fetch you a drink. It was basically like that robot, but at NASA. It's really just, it definitely does not stand the test of time.
But I support you.
Yeah. It's so campy.
I really want to watch The Matrix again right now. Also, because like the thing that you remember from your childhood about sci-fi was there's an aspect of it that is supposed to be predictive. Like, they call it sometimes speculative fiction.
Yes.
Fiction. Like, it takes science trends that exist and like extrapolates them out. Okay, based on what we know about science now, here's where we're going to be in 30 or 50 or 250 years.
Right.
And so they were so much more impactful. Like, I just remember when they did the bit when Morpheus talks about, you know, that we run on an electrical current and that, you know, the robots turned us into batteries. I was like, oh man, like, I remember being so.
I think there were a lot of people who did not realize though how much like that was the like that, because there's all, you know, we're talking about the you know, the murder hornets, and there's those weird moments in like that cinema can do so well, and sometimes just real life stories can also capture, but that connects some dot of science for you that you never, like your biology class could never have connected.
Yeah.
I was thinking of the murder hornets because there was the discussion. Ed Young did a little tweet storm, and I had learned this once before and I'd forgotten it, but that the Japanese honeybee has evolved to attack hornets, not by directly attacking them, but by surrounding them with a bunch of bees and then vibrating their wings so that they basically cook the hornet to death between them by just heating and creating carbon dioxide in the middle. And they basically like just kill this hornet by like heating it to death. And I was like, it's gruesome. Also, what an amazing, weird evolution. And I was like, had someone taught me this in biology class, I would have been like, biology, this is the most amazing field. I could have been a biologist today. I don't know. Like, it just, you sometimes need those things, right? Like Matrix, you are a battery. That is a connection like that I don't think most people could
make and would make on their own. No.
Right.
Also, I saw a video of a murder hornet killing a mouse, and I really will never recover from that.
I haven't seen it. I'm not going to look that up.
Okay, because I have so many questions. Someone wants to know what the relationship. Well, the question is, does SpaceX lease parts out to NASA? And what I was going to ask was a more general question, which what is the relationship between private space exploration efforts and NASA and JPL? Like, how much are you guys cooperating?
There's a ton of cooperation. There's independence, there's cooperation. A lot of the private industry, one of the, I think the strongest partnerships, and it's very obvious, is Commercial Crew, which is happening, great segue into the end of May. On May 27th, the hope is if weather and conditions allow, we'll launch the first humans from US soil since 2011 2011. Yeah, July. July 2011. So 9 years. And that is on a SpaceX rocket. And that partnership kind of grew out of the end of the shuttle program. And the idea was, rather than have NASA just keep building new rockets to send humans into low Earth orbit, what if we helped industry to build up those things? And in the same way, kind of like, I don't own an airplane every time I want to fly somewhere. I don't like buy an airplane and be like, this is my airplane, I'm going to fly. Instead, you just buy a ticket. And the hope was that, okay, if we can get industry to the point where they can produce safe, reliable launch vehicles for humans to launch on, then we could, that's right. You could buy a seat as NASA, and of course, then other people who might want to do that for whatever private industry could also do that. And so that's really, I think, where a lot of the SpaceX and now Boeing stuff are kind of coming up. But of course, like everybody else, we, our missions coming up, the Psyche mission, which is going to an asteroid, they're going to use a SpaceX rocket. We partnered together a little bit in the past on working on some of their Mars landing designs, because we've had some success, obviously, doing that, and they were looking for, I think, some veterans to help them. So there's quite a bit of partnership. I think some people think of it as a real competition, but I think it's much more of an enabling thing, right? Like when we talk about, again, buying a ticket on an airplane, rather than paying for a whole airplane, if I can just buy a ticket, I also have that much more money to do really interesting science missions.
Right, for the actual science.
That's right. Yeah, it's more mission money that I can put towards a rover or a lander on Europa or any of those other things. So that's kind of the great thing about those partnerships, is like, it's not only does it help the industry grow, but then in the end, that cheaper cost helps us do more and more science that isn't necessary for profit, but is really for, hopefully, all humankind.
Okay, so here is the one that I really want to ask you, and I don't care how crazy I sound to you, because this has been validated in the New York Times.
Oh.
The military just came out and authenticated these videos. Have you seen all the footage of the unidentified flying objects? So they're not being called that right now. They're called unclassified. I don't know. Anyway, there has been.
I've seen them. I mean, I think
military footage of unidentified flying objects. What do you think of the spaceship footage?
I mean, personally, I think unidentified is the key word in there. Like, I don't think they're spaceships. Here's my thing. I will say, like, I do believe in aliens. Like, I think that if you look at mathematically the universe, it's impossible for there to be so many planets and so many different variations of sunlight. Right. Like, there are so many. It seems impossible to me that we could be the only planet with life. That being said, if you are smart enough, in my mind, you're an alien, you've somehow managed to travel the billions, trillions of miles, whatever, from your world to ours, I feel like you're also smart enough to not get caught.
But maybe you think that the people on the planet you're visiting are so dumb.
I mean, maybe they're like, these people are so dumb.
Discovered by an ant. Like, no one worries about an ant looking
at you.
Like,
I mean, that's
go around the ants. Like,
that's
hey,
something I hadn't considered.
And then you look, and then the ant looks at you, and you go, oh, I better bug out. The ant seems to be paying attention.
I mean, that is true. I guess if, like, all of a sudden, like, I saw a bear and I made eye contact, I'd be like, oh no, I gotta go.
Yes, I mean, having encountered a bear in the wild, like looking at the bear and the bear looks at you like, oh,
time to leave.
The bear looked at you, you were like, oh, look, it's a bear.
So I mean, I guess you're right. I guess you got. I mean, I still think that. I mean, I love that people are excited about this stuff. I just think I don't make that last logical step from unidentified equals alien. Right. I think it means that, like, there's something obviously unexplainable about it at first pass, but there's probably a more realistic explanation.
Like,
absolutely.
It's the first time we've ever seen anything that felt like it came from legitimate sources.
Yes.
That military is authenticating the video, that you can hear fighter pilots, or you can hear commercial airline pilots talking about what they're seeing, and it doesn't seem like it was manufactured or doctored. It's interesting to contemplate.
Absolutely.
The thing is, whenever you in a movie, whenever there's alien contact, everyone runs into the street and, like, pulls off their pants. So with the fact that that's not happening, it's remarkable. And I think it's just because, like, there probably are aliens, but, like, people still have to, like, feed their kids and go to work and stuff.
That, I've always, that's an interesting thing. So one, I will say, like, none of those videos are like the thing is 10 feet from you and they have a really clear, yeah, it's like, what is this done? Yeah. But I will say that's an interesting conversation, because you know, one of my hopes and dreams for my job is that eventually the mission I'm on, or one of the missions that we're working on, will discover, you know, even if it's not intelligent life, some sort of life in a different world.
Yeah, because is that
And
has to be like, is that a prime, sorry to use sci-fi,
Yeah.
prime directive for you guys? Like as a part of space exploration is like looking for signs of intelligent life? Is that an aspect of the work that you do or no?
Absolutely. I think it's absolutely part of it. And right, that is one of the things that motivates so strongly how we choose certain missions, right? And you see that like it's very clear in the Mars program. Viking in 76 was like, let's look directly for evidence of life. But now we're very much in the let's build the case for why life could exist. So it's look for water, make sure the water was
Right,
habitable.
planet.
Now look, that's right.
Yeah.
And we've done that. Like, so Mars, like we've built the case, which is why now the next missions can go and start looking for life and at least understand the context of where to find that life and what it might possibly look like if it were to, you know, be similar to life on Earth. And so you can start answering real questions as opposed to being like, maybe it exists. So I think it's part of our objectives, but I always wonder at some level, like, would that, like, if we did it, would it change the world? Like it would, but also like the next day I'd still have to go to my office. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like, oh, I don't need to buy groceries. That's right.
Yeah. Right? Like I feel like I think that like that moment, that seminal moment that we all see in movies, like that we saw in like Independence Day, or you know, even Close Encounters, was like people going crazy around the concept that like we're not alone. But the fact of the matter is, like if we validated, oh yeah, there's probably, because look, just from a scientific perspective, just from a probabilities perspective, there's probably a whole thread of life that's less evolved, and a whole, because there's just too much space.
Yeah, you have to guess on that we are average, right? Like with no other data, you cannot assume you're at the very top of anything. You just got to assume this is it. This is average for the universe.
Take a look around. Look at the internet. We're definitely not. But it doesn't change the fact that like the scope of people's lives is my family cared for? Are my kids okay? You know, am I safe? Are the people I love safe? That's probably always going to be the scope of people's lives for almost all of us, except for space scientists. And then even space scientists still have people they love, and kitty cats that are trying to voodoo me through the computer, and you know, other things that are more important or as important as
totally
encounter. You know what I mean? It wouldn't obviate, it wouldn't eliminate or nullify the everyday issues and goals and problems and joys that we have as human beings. You know, we would still be kind of moving around our little anthill, our little ant farm.
So I mean, I can't see how you get. Although I would love to believe at the very least we would get like an international holiday, like, you know, it'd be like May 14th. Yeah, it's the International Day of Extraterrestrial Life Discovery. Everyone gets a vacation. I'm like, yay!
That's catchy name. Yeah, I mean, it's something I'm not obsessed with, but I just find very interesting, because
but I think
a kid who was like, I'm gonna move to Mars when I'm grown up.
I think there's still the hope for a lot of us, you know, that we'll see humans in other, you know, in other worlds, not just the moon. But I also think like for me, fundamentally more exciting than that is like just, you know, figuring out if like that we're alone or not, and in some concrete way, right? Not just the hypothetical, like it must be true, but like that here it is.
Yeah.
There's the biology on this other world. Could you believe that? Yeah.
That would be great. How long do you think it's going to be before we can fly around in spaceships? Like how many generations before like all of us are just like?
We're getting close. I mean, I think it's going to be something that is for the rich to begin with, obviously. But it feels like, you know, I know that the stated goals of places like Virgin Galactic and other, you know, and Blue Origin and things, is that it comes down eventually to the difference between like, you know, buying the house with the third bedroom or taking the family vacation to low Earth orbit. And I think that's a pretty solid place to hopefully start, where people can kind of experience that. I really do hope that
trip that you save for.
That's right. You save up. It's like my retirement thing is I'm going to go do this. I'm going to spend, you know, 2 days in space, throwing up most of it, but it's going to be awesome. I'm hoping that it also, like my real hope is that it comes down at least to the price where people who go can experience some of the overview effect that, you know, you hear astronauts talk about, really the recognition that it really is, you know, a borderless planet, and that we really are just kind of all clumped together on this tiny ball in space. Yeah. And I want that so much, because I really think if you can get enough smart, influential people into that perspective that you might really be able to help society move more in that direction where we're a little bit more considerate of each other. So that's, I think we're getting very close. I mean, I would say that's probably in the next 10 years where you start really seeing, you know, a much, I mean, because I think we're at 560 or 70 so astronauts ever in space. And I think that number will be quickly surpassed in the next 10 years.
That'll be exciting.
Yeah.
You are one of my very favorite people ever, and we don't hang out enough. We've been literally
No,
trying
I know.
to live together for 4 years, but we're gonna persist. And then we always see each other at Comic-Con, but there's not gonna be a Comic-Con this year. So
No dance parties, I know.
instead of Comic-Con, we'll just do some common dance parties here in Los Angeles. I want to remind everybody who we've been drinking for. Project Angel Food. It's projectangelfood.org is the website if you'd like to donate. They deliver meals to people who are homebound because of persistent ongoing illness or debilitation. It's a great organization with a top-notch rating on Charity Navigator. And if you would like to donate, I encourage you to do so. I'll be making a donation at the end of this live cast. And if you would like to have cocktails delivered to your home, if you don't want to make them, you can just order them at courageandstone.com. And 30% of everything that we make is going to support the U.S. Bartenders Guild. Bartenders are obviously out of work and probably will be for a very long time. And so we're hoping to support people who cannot pivot to at-home delivery or pick up. Restaurants can, bartenders can't. So I started as a bartender and I love bartenders. And so whatever you buy from courageandstone.com, a third of it's going to American bartenders. And Bobak, what do you want to tell me? What your handles tweets out loud on all platforms?
No, I mean, the main things is, I guess, a couple of things I'm just really excited. Obviously, May 27th. Real excited that like we're going to launch Humans from Florida again. And July 17th. Humans, I know. And July 17th.
Ultimate self-quarantine. Getting launched.
Yeah, they are. I know that they have like already. I mean, I know they're like in an enhanced quarantine too, because obviously they can't afford to take anything into space and or to their space station as well, because you know that would be a real, you know.
Yeah, don't bring your germs into space.
Right. So I think they're starting quarantine probably very early this time, comparatively speaking. And then July 17th of this year, we're launching the next rover to Mars, Perseverance, with a helicopter on it. It's going to be an amazing mission.
It's like Bad Boys 5, Mars.
I want everybody, I mean, if you didn't see the news, Tom Cruise is apparently working with SpaceX and NASA to do a movie maybe in space eventually. It's a wild time for space.
That feels absolutely for Tom Cruise. Yeah, totally.
It makes sense.
The helicopter sequence that he did in was it Ghost
Protocol? Ghost Nation? Yeah.
The last one or what? The one? Ghost Protocol.
Yeah, I can't remember which one's which.
Anyway, the most recent one where he skydives and then fist fights Superman and all that stuff. He like flew the helicopter himself. Like he learned how to fly that helicopter. Did all this.
So cool.
Any crazy Hollywood guy can go into space to make a movie. It's obviously Tom Cruise. Great. So follow Bobak on all platforms, tweets out loud, and you can see the handles on all of my socials. The charity is Project Angel Food. The at-home booze delivery is Courage and Stone. And this was so awesome. It's so good to see you.
Yeah, thanks for teaching me how to make a margarita. That was awesome.
Our very good mutual friend who's a better friend to you than she is to me, that I said hello, and I send germ-free hugs. And we'll make a beer every year, and we're not able to do that either. So we'll just have to drink margaritas until we can make beer together again.
Sounds good.
Yeah, it was so great talking with you.
Fun hanging out with you.
Thank you. This was so rad. I'm so happy. There's a million more things we could talk about in space, but you can ask Bobak like questions online about space. Don't ask me any questions about space because I had to Google how to make a margarita. So but this has been so awesome, and you guys are the greatest. And thank you so much for being a part of this. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Thank you. Yay.